Good evening, everybody. Hello, my name is Erica Ellington. I'm a professor of astrophysics from the University of Colorado in Boulder, and I will be our guide tonight for the Chimney Rock celebration of the major lunar standstill. And I want to welcome all of you to Chimney Rock and to what I hope is a beautiful and extraordinary event. I want to ask you all, what are we doing here? Kind of out in the middle of nowhere, out in the middle of the night. This is a late night event. Thank you guys for coming. It's a little bit chilly. We'll try to keep you warmed up here. And I want to tell you a little bit about our program tonight. We are here to celebrate an event that really happens only 18 years. This is the sort of event that maybe you'll get to see again and again, or maybe this is a one-off for any of us. This is something that we have been planning for a number of years to try to bring people together to celebrate a very special moonrise. But to get us here, I actually want to kind of start with a moment of gratitude, because in the last couple of days, we have had a couple of challenges to getting all of us here warm and dry. Do you remember a couple of days we may have had what we in Colorado would call a rain event? This rain event actually completely wiped out the visitor parking lot, completely wiped it out, and the pathway up here. And so the brave folk of the San Juan National Forest actually pulled out all the stops, pulled up all their personnel. They rebuilt that entire parking lot in half a day. Okay, so can we have a shout out for the San Juan National Forest? All right. So this is just the first step to bring us all here together. Another bunch of people that you've already met as well are the volunteers from the Chimney Rock Interpretive Association. These are volunteers for the area who take their time to come and share their love and their knowledge about this area with visitors here. They're here that help you check out and help you get to your seats here tonight. So how about a little bit of a shout out for the Chimney Rock Interpretive Association? Thank you, guys. Now, some of you may have also come and stopped by our telescopes that we set up outside the door. These come courtesy of Fisk Planetarium and the University of Colorado. And so let's thank the folks that came out from there as well. Thank you, Nick. So in planning this event, and I'll be telling you a lot more about the event and what it is we're actually doing here, in planning this event, we really wanted to bring people together to see a particular moonrise that could be seen between the two pillars of Chimney Rock. This is really a rare event, a beautiful event, an event that we wanted to share with a tremendous number of people. Unfortunately, if you've been up during the daytime, you'll probably notice that when you get up towards the top of the upper mesa, Chimney Rock, it gets narrower and narrower and narrower until really what you have is cliffs on either side. And so when we started talking about, hey, this time is coming, let's bring some people together. Let's see how many people, we thought people would be enthusiastic, and sure enough, you're here. You must be enthusiastic. The head ranger went up and said, you want people to go up there in the middle of the night? No way. And I have to say, it is really scary up there at night. So we started thinking about how we could bring people together to see this event, and we realized that what we needed was the magic of modern technology, Starlink. And we needed people who knew how to photograph astronomical events and share them with large numbers of people, and we had the amazing good fortune to start our collaboration with Griffith Observatory in Los Angeles. Do you guys know Griffith Observatory? It's that really beautiful observatory that's in all the famous movies. So we have a team from Griffith Observatory here, and I'd like them all to stand up and say hello, except they're not here. So there is a film crew from Griffith Observatory that is up on the upper mesa up there right now. So at dusk, before the sun went down, they hauled all the equipment, including a Starlink satellite dish, up to the upper mesa, computers, cables, cameras everywhere, the Starlink, and so they are up there poised to film the moonrise for us. Now, along with that crew up at the top, Patrick So, Vanessa Alarcon, Ed Krupp, the director, they're sending those pictures up into the sky to the satellite. They're coming down to another Starlink, which is right over there, and they're being caught by Matthew Burlando from Griffith, who is here, who is also our stage manager for tonight. Now, I'm just telling you all these things that are happening behind the scene because Matthew then is sending all those pictures through the Starlink back up and out to Los Angeles, where they're being caught by Pixie and Ella, who are taking those, bundling them up, and everything we're seeing tonight is being broadcast worldwide online on the Griffith website. So think about this. We are here seeing the sky, but we are also sharing this with everybody else. We had an event similar to this last night, and more than 1,000 people have seen this. So we hope that we'll have a great program tonight as well, and we'll be able to share it with a much wider universe. So this ripples wider and wider. This evening goes from just this little nexus of us, this little bit of warmth here in the middle of the night. Now we're talking about people all over the world tuning in to the major lunar standstill. So one of the things I'd like to share with you about Chimney Rock, though, is how special a place it is. So this is an ancient place. If you visited here, you know that the Ancestral Pueblo people lived here. Really, people were here since time immemorial. And I'd like to make an acknowledgement of the many people who are associated with the Chimney Rock and the Chimney Rock area. So I'd like to acknowledge that the land currently known as the Chimney Rock National Monument has been the traditional homelands of Indigenous peoples since time immemorial. It is also within the exterior boundaries of the Southern Ute Indian Reservation. We're grateful to work in partnership with the 26 sovereign nations who continue to call this land home. Our partners include the pueblos of Acoma, Cochiti, Isleta, Jemez, Laguna, Nambe, Oke-Awinge, Picuris, Pojoaque, Sandia, San Felipe, San Ildefonso, Santa Ana, Santa Clara, Santo Domingo, Taos, Tesuque, Isleta del Sur, and Zia, the Hopi tribe, the Zuni tribe, the Southern Ute Indian tribe, the Ute Mountain Ute tribe, the Ute Indian tribe of the Uinta and Ure, the Navajo Nation, and the Jicarilla Apache Nation. Together, we care for and protect the natural and cultural resources and objects of the monument and continue to share the history and importance of this culturally rich landscape. And so I also want to express my gratitude to the people of all of these nations for sharing with us their love, their knowledge, and the importance of this land. So one of the really rewarding projects that I've had with all of these groups of people is a short film I'd like to show you now about the moonrise at Chimney Rock. So let me start with this and learn a little bit more about this place.
Keshi Kotonadea. Hello, I am Cordelia Hui. I am a Zuni tribal member and also the Lieutenant Governor for the Pueblo of Zuni, also known as the Zuni tribe, which is located in northwest New Mexico. Hotoa Kwetan Mulabichi Gwawan Chatle. I am Corn Clan and a child of the Parrot Clan. As Ashiwi, Zuni people, we have a deep connection to Chimney Rock. It was a settlement of Puebloan peoples. These were my ancestors. Chimney Rock is a part of my identity as a Shiwi, a Zuni person. Chimney Rock National Monument is located in southwest Colorado in the southern Rocky Mountains. It's a varied terrain with pine forests, deep river valleys, and desert grasslands, and it's home to mule deer, wild turkey, peregrine falcons, and other wildlife. One of the most prominent landscape features is a narrow rocky ridge far above the river valley floor. These iconic rock formations began their building process about 100 million years ago in a vast and shallow sea. They are the thickest and hardest portions of an ancient beachfront, and so resisted weather, water, and glacial erosion more than the surrounding rock. The upper mesa at Chimney Rock held an important Native American settlement with ancestral Puebloan people living there between 925 and 1125 AD. Along with their settlements in the river valleys and nearby hills and mesas, they built multi-story buildings and ritual spaces on the top of the high ridge, a significant effort for this difficult-to-access place far above the valley floor. The Chimney Rock area holds deep spiritual significance for the 26 modern Pueblo and tribal communities that have cultural and traditional ties to the region. Today, descendants of the ancestral Puebloans return to this important place of cultural continuity for ceremonial and traditional purposes.
Behind me is Chimney Rock. It's a very significant place that goes back in time immemorial when our ancestral people, from the time of emergence and migrations, they had their migratory routes, seeking their own times of destiny. And that's how we continue to relate to our Aboriginal ancestral, places that we now consider as a broader cultural landscape point of understanding.
The dramatic horizon at Chimney Rock naturally draws our attention, particularly to the northeast, to the gap between the pinnacles that can be seen from the very top of the ridge. The view guides our eyes to the intersection of earth and sky, where the cycles of the sun, moon, and stars have long played an important role.
I think that the old people, since they didn't have any meteorologists or they didn't have Channel 7 to depend on to deliver the weather, they had to become very familiar with their areas. And the alignment of the planets and stars plays a lot into how we plant. Since here in this part of the country, we have a 5-month growing season.
There are a lot of high monuments and marks within these top mountainous areas where you can use those for alignments, especially in the night sky. When you see the Big Dipper, the Little Dipper, the Seven Sisters, there's certain constellations within our society that is very, very significant and detrimental in making sure that we follow that same cycle.
The sun's yearly cycle controls the seasons and can be tracked by watching the position of sunrise or sunset on the horizon. Over the course of the year, the sun's rising position swings through a fixed range of locations, with the most northern position at the June solstice and the southernmost position in December. This pattern was known and celebrated throughout history and around the world. This knowledge is expressed in many ways, including marking special locations and directions for observing the sky.
I have different sites that I use as markers for that. Some along this mesa that you see behind me, some along the western ridge on the other side. I use as my markers for when to plant.
Could Chimney Rock function as a solar observing place? The view to the pinnacles is to the northeast from the ancient structures at Chimney Rock, suggesting that the summer solstice sun in its most northern position might be visible between the rocks. Both ancient and current sun-watching practices emphasize this important sun position. However, the gap is just a little bit too far to the north for the sun to be seen to ever rise between the pinnacles as seen from the narrow ridge. So are there other celestial objects that might be seen rising between the pinnacles? While the sun never reaches this position, the moon can. The sun and moon travel along paths throughout the sky that are very similar, but not exactly the same. The moon's orbit is tilted about 5 degrees relative to the apparent path of the sun. This is why eclipses don't happen every month. The moon passes just above or below the sun most of the time. In this simulation, we divide the sky into north and south with a blue line and mark the sun's path in yellow and the moon in green. You can see the sun's north limit on the right and its southern limit on the left. Now let's look at the moon when it's near this northern limit. Can you see that the moon's orbital tilt lets it lie a little north of the sun? This is exactly what we're looking for. But the moon's orbit rolls backwards very slowly in time because of gravitational tugs from the Earth and the sun. During this cycle, the moon's northernmost position drops down to a minimum at a time we call the minor lunar standstill. After that, it rises again to its high northern position for the time we call the major lunar standstill. This entire cycle takes about 18.6 years. When the moon is near its most northern position at the major lunar standstill, it can be seen to rise in the gap between the rocks at Chimney Rock. These spectacular moonrises repeat each month at different phases for a period of about 2 years. Then the moon moves south again and will not be seen in the gap for another 18 years. Chimney Rock was likely a place where people watched and celebrated the motions of the moon.
It's pretty amazing how they knew all that way back when, before all the modern technology you have today. So they're the ones that really started all this. They used the lunar and the solar solstice on how they got to see different things and how they did the calendars. And
Our ancestors at current day, we still utilize the lunar cycle. And this is part of how the teachings were and are currently. The star systems are named, and we practice those as well, place names, as well as on the earth place names. It all ties us together as far as how the structure of the cultural calendar is created. And that's how we're tied into the landscape. We're tied into our ancestors in that shape and form.
The major lunar standstill happens for only a short period of time every 18 years, but Chimney Rock remains an important place, a reminder of ancient connections between earth and sky, past and future. I think now, today, it's especially important for our young people, and we keep saying when we visit sites, we need to get our young people up here. They need to know that this is a part of their identity. And we're kind of losing our language, so that's one of the things that we want to do, is to bring them up to sites like this, so they know that it's still living. Our culture's still living. Our language is still living. Our culture's still living, and these are the places that they're living in. Our ancestors were here physically, but they're here spiritually, and that's what I see when I come up.
So I hope you enjoyed that, an introduction to some of the traditional power of Chimney Rock. I'd like to now do the thing that I, as an astronomy professor, cannot help but do, but try to teach you what is the lunar standstill all about? What is the astronomy of this thing we're here gathered to see today? So the moon goes through a lot of different cycles. Most people are aware that every 29 or so days, the moon goes from a thin crescent out to a big fat full moon, back to a crescent again. The phases change over the course of a month. And so this cycle is something that people have actually been tracking for many thousands of years. Here are two examples of what might actually be moon tallies. Can you see there are little crescents, tally markers? Whenever we see a list of 29 anythings, astronomers get very excited and say, that's the moon, that's the moon. And so, yeah, people have been looking at this, knowing when there's going to be a full moon, knowing when there's going to be a new moon might be the difference between having light to go hunting or having no light and being hunted. So this is a very useful thing to track the monthly cycle, but it turns out the moon has a much more subtle cycle, much longer cycle that maybe not have like so much value, so much sort of practical aspects to it. This is the lunar standstill cycle, and I want to kind of dance our way through an explanation of this. So sun dancing and moon dancing. The sun and the moon go through cycles going to the northern part of the sky and the southern part of the sky. I'm going to be showing you this diagram over and over again, and I'm going to make a disclaimer. These diagrams always show the point of view from an observer on a stationary Earth, so the Earth is always in the center. You'll see the moon's orbit. Moon goes around the Earth, that's great, but we also show the sun's path, apparent path around the Earth. This gets me into so much trouble because the Earth goes around the sun for sure, but because we live on the Earth, we seem to see the sun go in a apparent path across the sky once per year. And so the sun in its apparent path, it goes to a northern part. You can see that on the right side of the diagram, and then a southern part. And every year it makes that cycle to the north and to the south. And that is actually the thing that causes the seasons that we enjoy here on Earth. So if you wanted to track these seasons, make a solar calendar, one of the easy ways to do this is that you get up at dawn every day. And my students will say that is not an easy way to do anything. But if you were to do this and mark where the sun is rising on the horizon day by day, what you're going to see is that that position of the sun is going to change. Let's see. Oh dear. See if I can make this one work one more time. And the sun is going to move to the north in June to the June solstice, and then to the south again for the winter solstice and back again. So this cycle can be tracked by a sky watcher, someone whose job it might be to make these calendars and watch the solar cycle. Now the moon makes a north-south cycle as well, and it does this every month. And so you can imagine the sun is doing its cycle back and forth, and the moon, it's doing cycle like this. All right, and so we're getting a little bit of a dance back and forth. So the moon goes very quickly back and forth. Now, if you're going to do a solar calendar, you could think that those pillars at Chimney Rock might be a spectacular way to frame the northernmost position of the sun. And it turns out it is completely useless as a solar calendar, standing in that upper mesa looking at that famous view. The sun only comes up to the shoulder of Chimney Rock. It doesn't go far enough north. That gap is too far north. So this is kind of a disappointment for the astronomers who said, wow, that would be so cool. Oh, well. But then the question is, what about the moon? Because the moon does do that north-south thing. Could that possibly go far enough north to be seen between the gaps? So here's that famous diagram. The blue line separates the northern part of the sky from the southern part of the sky. And you can see the sun's path going north and south. And I put the sun in the southern part. I put it at its southernmost part. And I put the full moon opposite the sun in the northernmost part. And can you see that those two rings are separated by a little angle? The sun's orbit is tilted about 5 degrees from the apparent path of the sun. That's why we don't get an eclipse every single month. The moon is always going a little bit too high or a little bit too low until they really match up. Okay, so look at that. Isn't that cool? The moon is going a little bit further north than the sun. Bingo, we got it. This is how maybe we could see the moon at Chimney Rock. The problem here is that this doesn't happen every month. The moon doesn't go to that very high northern position every month, and that's because there's basically a little twist that happens with the moon's orbit. So let's have a look and see what that might look like. There we go. Have a look at the moon's orbit and how it twists over time backwards. Look at the moon. It was pretty far north, but now it's dropping. So when the moon is going in its up and down monthly swing, you can see that, well, now it's not going very far north at all. It's not even going as far north as the sun would go. Really not very far north. There's a time when it actually doesn't even go as far north as the sun. The very lowest we call the minor lunar standstill. But then the twist continues, and the moon can go further and further north, penetrate further along the northern horizon, and when it's at its maximum, that's the thing we call the major lunar standstill. So there's a diagram showing what we're doing tonight. The moon is in that high position, the farthest north that it can go. Now, what's really happening here is that we're seeing the moon in its little dance going back and forth every month. And so you can imagine the moon doing its little shuffle back and forth every single month. Okay, over time, it may make a little bit less shuffle, a smaller swing back and forth until the minor lunar standstill. And then it turns out 119 months later, it makes a bigger shuffle until it comes to the major lunar standstill. I would like to invite you to dance with me if we want to warm up a little bit. If you want to, here's how the standstill shuffle works. Starting off with a minor lunar standstill, a monthly swing, a little bit back and forth. Are you doing it with me? We'll speed it up. We won't do a whole 119 months, but now the swing gets bigger and bigger. Back and forth. All right, and then the major standstill. All right. So give yourselves a hand for the standstill shuffle. So this is the diagram I've drawn here on the side. You can see at the major lunar standstill, you have the biggest swings, and the minor, you have the little swings. This pattern is, gotta say, it's a little subtle. Although many people around the world throughout history have been such good sky watchers, they may have been able to see this. But still, it's subtle. It doesn't have like a really practical value. Would people care about it? How would we know? Why would people care about it? Why would people come out in the middle of nowhere in the middle of the night to come and see this thing? Well, it turns out that it could be that if it is something that is rare, it is special, and also if it makes a beautiful show, it might be worth noting. And at Chimney Rock, we do think that the Ancestral Pueblo people who built the buildings at Chimney Rock, way up there on the upper mesa, did watch the moon. Because when we do the tree ring dating of some of the buildings up there, we find that they were built and renovated on 18-year cycles, on years associated with the lunar standstill 1,000 years ago. So we are, in some senses, coming back to a 1,000-year-old tradition here tonight, watching the lunar standstill at Chimney Rock. Now, what we're going to see tonight, here's the configuration. We're seeing the moon in its northernmost position. The sun is actually over on the back side, and so we're not going to see a full moon rise. what we'll see is a third quarter rise. That's why we're here close to midnight. So we'll see a half moon rising. And one of the questions I want to see is that we have some really good evidence that there is a traditional interest in the moon associated with Chimney Rock. But could there be any other places in the world where that could happen, where people would have noticed this very subtle, strange cycle? But before we go into that, I would like to see what is going on up there. So Matthew, can you plug us in and see what's going on in the upper mesa? Hello, Ed. Good evening.
Good evening, Erica. Obviously, good evening to all of you at the Chimney Rock Visitor Center Amphitheater. And of course, good evening to the worldwide Major Standstill Moon Watchers. The Griffith Observatory remote internet broadcast team is on the mountain, of course, as you've said, and it is powered up and online in order to transmit the Major Standstill Northern Moonrise to the entire planet. We are, in fact, honored to be partnered here with the U.S. Forest Service and its affiliated tribes, and as well the Chimney Rock Interpretive Association. And I do want to make clear as well, Griffith Observatory is owned and operated by the City of Los Angeles Department of Recreation and Parks, and we are supported in this endeavor by our private nonprofit organization, Griffith Observatory Foundation. As you mentioned, Erica, this broadcast, this live broadcast now will be posted on the Griffith Observatory website once it's concluded, and that's griffithobservatory.org. Erica, I've been tracking the Major Standstill Moon since 1987, and that was, in fact, in northern Scotland at Callanish and Castle Fraser. And then in 2006 on the newly installed moonset lines at Griffith Observatory. And now in this season, in 2024, 2025, I'm delighted, obviously, to be continuing at Griffith Observatory, but also thank you to you for letting us be part of the Chimney Rock Major Standstill Initiative. The experience at these various sites has certainly informed me of one thing, and it's very clear that at least as far as I can see, the Chimney Rock lunar alignment is the most exquisite of all, and every major standstill, it continues to deliver moonlight delight. I'm accompanied here by all of the people that help bring everything up on the mountain, as well as our observatory team, and I'm going to ask each of them to introduce themselves.
I'm Dr. Ruth Van Dyke, a Chaco scholar and archaeologist from Binghamton University.
Hi, I'm Dr. Fabio Silva, an archaeoastronomer and archaeologist from the UK.
I'm Barbara Sanborn, and I helped schlep up the stuff.
I'm Ryan Zabagas. I'm from Pagosa and helped.
Yeah, Dr. Andy Green, local astronomer.
Who else? Patrick So, Theatre Programs Manager, Griffith Observatory Broadcast Team.
And I'm Vanessa Alarcon, the astronomical observer at Griffith Observatory, and I'm on cameras.
So thanks very much. Erica, it looks pretty good up here. We can saw El Nath in the gap, and the gap looks clear.
That's it. Sounds great, Ed. And I hear that we had a special astronomical event happen earlier this evening as well.
The keen eye of Vanessa Alarcon picked up an aurora borealis in the northern sky, which we were able certainly to see here, not only with the unaided eye, but of course, especially with the cameras, and we fully documented it.
So we've had already had a special astronomical event, although I have to say I was sort of referring to the aurora, but I also want to refer that it's also my birthday.
I didn't know if that was confidential information, but happy birthday, Erica.
So I hope you guys are staying warm up there. We'll check in with you a little bit before the moonrise. Thanks to the calculations of Dr. Fabio Silva, who is standing there, we're pretty sure that the moonrise will come at about between 12:28 or 12:29. If it doesn't, blame him, not me. And so let's continue on with our program. Now, I asked that provocative question, is there any other place where people would have watched the moon with such care and seen this subtle cycle? What other places can you think of around the world where people sort of looked at ancient astronomical events? Oh, I heard a couple people yell Stonehenge. And, you know, as putting together this like dream team of amazing people, I started thinking about it. Stonehenge, yeah. Stonehenge and the moon. Do people talk? Yeah, people are looking at Stonehenge and the moon. And so I called them up. And I would like to introduce our speaker tonight, who comes from the UK, Amanda Chadburn, Dr. Amanda Chadburn, who will be telling us about her research at Stonehenge looking at the moon. So, Amanda?
Thank you very much. Just going to get my timer on so I don't go over, because you don't want to see me, you want to see the moon. Okay. So first of all, I'd like to thank you very much for inviting me here. It's absolutely a privilege to be here. We're delighted to be here. And I'd like to thank everybody who's helped make our journey here, and the staff and everybody. So thank you very much, and perhaps particularly to Erica, who we've been working with for a couple of years, having Zoom meetings every month. And so thank you once again. So I'd like to just introduce the fact that we're part of a team. I'm part of a team with Fabio up at the top and Clive, who we'll be talking to a bit later. And we've been looking at the sun and also the moon. And I want to tell you a little bit about that. So Stonehenge, I don't know what you know about it. It's a monument in southern England. This is its famous element, these great stone pillars, which are made of single slabs of stone. So they're not, you know, lots of bits of stone put together. And everybody kind of knows it's associated with the sun, and we can see the sun there. But it's also associated with other things as well. This is the midwinter sunset. And as archaeologists, we actually think that the midwinter sunset is most important. But perhaps it's a bit easier if I explain it on a plan. This is an archaeological plan. It's as if you're looking from above, a bird's eye view. And you'll see that there's a ring, an outside ring, and that's made of earth, and it's cut into the local chalk, the local stone, which is chalk, the local rock. And chalk, obviously, as you know, is very kind of white, and it would have been quite an interesting looking monument when it was first built, gleaming bank and ditch cut into the chalk there. Now that's about 3000 BC. But the monument, which is so famous and a kind of global icon, is the stone elements. And that's what you see in the middle, that ring or those rings of stone. There are actually two main types of stone that are used in Stonehenge. The big, tall uprights are a very hard sandstone called sarsen. But there are also some smaller stones called bluestones. The sarsens come from quite some distance. They come from about 15 miles north of Stonehenge. And recent research has shown that they've come from a place called the West Woods. We've managed to tie that down more or less. The bluestones come from West Wales, and that is really quite some distance away. So we already know, you know, that this is really a special place with all these stones coming from such long distances. There's also a flat stone in the middle, the so-called altar stone, and really recent research has discovered that that comes from the far north of Scotland, which is miles and miles away, probably 500 miles away or so. So this is really special. I think I'll just show you here also importantly, you can see a kind of horseshoe shape of stones, and that's a really important thing to see. They're made of trilithons, 5 trilithons, each trilithon made of 3 stones. And you can see that they're in a regular horseshoe shape. This is a reconstruction, and it's easier to see perhaps what Stonehenge looked like from here, because today it's a ruined temple, if you like, it's ruined. But here we see it as it would have been in its kind of heyday. You see an outer stone circle with these lintels in a kind of ring beam at the top. And you can see the horseshoe of trilithons in between. And you can also see a number of other stones outside. There's 4 within the henge, and then you've got a pair, 2. They're the so-called slaughter stone and its companion, which is now missing. And then you've got another stone down there, which is still existing. That's called the heel stone. And there was probably another stone beside it, its companion, which is now missing. Now, I talked about the horseshoe. You can see that if you divide this with an imaginary line, if you look to the north, you'll see the midsummer sunrise at the solstice. And if you look to the south, you'll see the midwinter sunset. Archaeologists tend to think these days that actually it was the midwinter sunset which was most important, because there's an avenue, a kind of routeway, a road to the north, and you would have probably approached the monument up that way, and you'd have seen the tallest trilithon and the midwinter sunset setting in the gap between the 2 uprights in that trilithon. There were lots of other sites in the area around Stonehenge, hundreds and hundreds of them, in fact, prehistoric sites. And some of them are shown here. There's a long linear earthwork called the Cursors to the north. And Stonehenge has an avenue leading down to the River Avon. There are other monuments of a similar date called Woodhenge off to the side, and Durrington Walls. And these are also interesting because they have solstitial alignments as well. They're related to the sun. So these are just some of the alignments that you have. There's also one at Woodhenge. So you can see that the midwinter and the midsummer are very important to them. Now, we're here to look at the moon tonight, and Stonehenge has possible connections to the moons as well, the moon cycle as well. And that's through these 4 stones called the station stones, 2 of which exist today and 2 of which are missing. So you can see the ones which are still standing. They're just circled here. And then these 2 are missing, although on site today, if you go there, you'll see that they're marked by interpretation markers. So this is what they look like. They're made of sarsen, they're quite low. You'll see the station stone marker on the side. And when you can see this imaginary line between the 2 of them, you can see they actually are not blocked by the sarsen circle. And that's important. So they actually form a rectangle, and you can see that the sarsen ring and the sarsen stones fit beautifully inside them. So this is the solar alignment, and you can see that the station stones also have the same solar alignment as well, the midsummer sunrise, midwinter sunset. But what about the other bits? These long bits, these long sides of the rectangle? Well, they are perhaps related to the moon cycle, this 18-year cycle that we have here at Chimney. So the long side seem to be pointing to the northernmost moon set and the southernmost moonrise. Not the same as the one here at Chimney Rock, which is the northernmost moonrise. So this is an animation of the northernmost moon set. And the single standing stone is actually all that remains of the outer stone circle. So you can see it just setting over the moon, the station stone. Hope you could see that. Let me just check how I'm doing for time. Okay. This next one, I'm going to stop for a second because I'd like you to, this one's going to go fast. This camera angle is standing on one of the markers, and you can see the other station stone in the distance. And you can see that the imaginary line, the view, is not blocked by the sarsen stone. So I'm going to just play this, but you have to look very quickly at this rise, and you'll see it gets blocked by the sarsen circle. This is the line we're looking at. Oops, sorry. I'm going to have to go back. Let's try again. Wait out for it. Here it comes. Can you see? It got blocked very, very quickly. Although the other side of the southern circle, the stone circle, it wouldn't have been blocked. So the three of us, Fabio up at the top, myself and Clive, have been doing a lot of research over the last 2 years. We've been going out quite regularly, and we're currently doing our analysis, and we're hoping to publish over the next year or so. But I think at that stage, that more or less wraps it up.
Thank you, Amanda. We actually, for this event, we have not only Amanda here representing the Team Stonehenge, but we also have Fabio, who is up on the upper mesa to watch the moonrise from there. And we also have Dr. Clive Ruggles, who's also in the audience, who is one of the most famous Stonehenge archaeoastronomers in the world. And Clive, would you come down here?
Hi, Erica.
Oops.
Right. Okay, we've cut Erica off from the sound here. Yeah, it's absolutely marvelous to be here. As Amanda said, it's a different moon event here. We're not missing out on seeing the northernmost moonrise at Stonehenge, because that'll be in daylight. And it's just fabulous to be here. Last night we were up on the mountain where Fabio is now, so we were privileged to actually see a moonrise. And we were lucky, 4 hours before, we were up on the mountain and we were about to get hit by a thunderstorm, but all came well, and we had a fabulous time up there.
Well, I thought it'd be quite useful for everyone to know a little bit more about our research program, exactly what we're trying to find out, and I just wondered if you could kind of tell everybody what we've been doing.
Well, okay. Well, I mean, one of the big questions for us at Stonehenge is, was it intentional? I mean, here at Chimney Rock, it's obviously, as been said, it's about the moon. The moon alignment works. It doesn't work as a sun alignment. Stonehenge is mainly about the sun. I mean, thousands of people go there to watch midsummer sunrise, and it's all about the solstices, as Amanda has explained. Was it about the moon as well? It's not so clear, because maybe that axis, that perpendicular axis, is just geometrical. Of course, we're talking about a 5,000-year-old site, not a 1,000-year-old site. There are no indigenous people around today that living that tradition downwards. There's no one to tell us, and we don't have dendrochronology. I mean, all the wood rotted away many thousands of years ago for us. So it's more tricky evidence for us. So that's one question we have to ask. And of course, there's lots of practicalities. So we're asking about how practical was it for people to observe? And one big difference between there and here is the British weather. And so we've been there at fortnightly intervals to look at the moon. And there must have been 20, 30, 40 different occasions over the 2 years we could have seen it. Well, we've actually seen 6 events in that time. And of course, it was the same for people in the past. So I think that's one of the big questions we're asking, is whether people could have seen those patterns so easily. And I think here, where despite the odd thunderstorm, people would have seen most of these moonrises because of the different climate here. And that's one of the big questions we're asking there. So the question is still open, but we've got lots of answers, and I'm not going to bore you and talk while actually the moon's doing its thing here, but we've got lots of fun things that's been coming up and we've been discovering.
Yeah, absolutely. How are we doing for time? About 2 minutes. Okay.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you, we've been having this this conversation between ourselves, Stonehenge or Chimney Rock, which one is more convincing as a lunar observatory?
Well, I have to say, and I think it's largely about the weather, it's not us, it's you. I mean, this place is fantastic, and you can imagine that because of when you see Chimney Rock in the landscape, this is a significant thing in the landscape all around. You can understand why it became sacred, why the place near it became sacred. And then when that lunar alignment is discovered, how that plays into that. And where at Stonehenge, we don't have that evidence. We have all the evidence for the sun, and we suspect the moon, but we don't have such strong evidence.
So for all of you, we just want to put into context the thing that gives me shivers. It's not just that it is getting colder, I know, is that this is, clearly, I think one of the most convincing places for an ancient lunar observatory, an ancient lunar place for watching the moon, and possibly one of, certainly the most convincing, I think the best, and possibly one of the only very few ones on Earth. And so this is a special place to come and honor the rise of the moon. So, well, thank you guys for coming. It has been so much fun to have you here. And we're actually going to be doing a classic Colorado road trip to show these guys the rest of this area. So let's thank Clive and Amanda and Fabio on the mountain for coming and joining us.
Thank you once again.
Yeah, and thank you so much for having us.
So I want to give you a little bit more orientation to what we're going to be doing during the moonrise. We're getting down to the last couple of minutes. I'd like to check in on the upper mesa to make sure that everything is looking okay up there. But I also want to describe a little bit what will happen. The moon will rise between the pillars. Again, the calculation says around 28 or 29 minutes after the hour. It will take about 10 minutes to very gracefully go from the lower left to the upper right across the gap and then disappear behind Chimney Rock, the rightmost pillar. During that time, we're going to turn off all the lights, because we'll be able to not only see the image from the upper mesa better, but we're also underneath an absolutely beautiful, pristine, dark sky. And I'm going to encourage you to how often do you have, 10 minutes to sit and just look at something beautiful? And so enjoy that, look at the sky, enjoy the moonrise. About 10 minutes, we'll play a little music. I'm hoping that'll be a lovely experience. But because it is dark, if you do feel like you do need to leave the amphitheater, please, do so very carefully. We'll have someone here at the entrance to help you and get you out safely. And however, since it is dark, if you do feel like you need a little bit of help moving around the amphitheater, please ask for assistance and we're here to help you. Okay. So let's go check in with the Upper Mesa one more time and see what they're saying. Hey, Ed, how are things there?
Erica, we're pleased to report that the gap looks clear. I don't anticipate any difficulty in seeing this moonrise. The wind has died down a bit up here, so I think we're all copacetic with the moon.
Excellent. That sounds great. Just the sheer ingenuity you guys have brought to this project in figuring out how to get the camera crew up there, the batteries, all of the different connections to get this moonrise from this very precipitous place up in the middle of the Colorado mountains all the way worldwide. This has just been very, really impressive. I thank you all, and I'm so grateful for our collaboration.
Just a great pleasure, and of course our insurance company loves that we do this.
So Matthew, how are we on time now? 2 seconds? Okay, let's have a look.
you.